It's funny how things align. And I remember Nick Howe's Hanaur, Hanaur's talk, The Pitchforks Are Coming, from years ago. And I knew he was right. Whereas he's tackling the problem in a way as a venture capitalist who is seeing the figures and recognizing a systemic problem, meaning that the way capitalism is running and being fueled by special interest groups to undermine the loss of income so they can hoard is going to bring down the entire system. I looked at it from a different point of view, and I started a number of years before Nick did. Occupy Wall Street happened in 2011. Prior to that, Bitcoin came out in 2009, and I was intrigued by it. Um, and I was started working on the idea of in a way, a decentralized startup, because the problem I saw was that there was all these gatekeepers, and the problem is a person with an idea can't move his idea forward because there's these closed capital networks that ultimately own, control, manage your idea. So I started thinking of, well, what if we had a different kind of startup? And then Occupy happened, and I thought, well, what if you had a different kind of corporation? And then in the same time frame, I realized, because I started thinking about, looking at what was going on with all the protests, I realized the entire system was broken. And I also realized that I couldn't really go to Wall Street and say, hey guys, your system is broken. So the idea of a decentralized kind of framework for this stuff to build on, what we call the blockchain today, ultimately is what evolved and came about. I couldn't really build it, so I reached out to the founders of Bitcoin Magazine, which I thought would know about Bitcoin if you're writing a magazine on it. And Ethereum happened. Now, at the same time, Nick was looking at, how do we slow down this decay, this implosion that he saw happening within 30 years of around 2012. So around, let's say, probably happening quicker. So he sees an implosion around 2030. That's just around the corner. He's within that age group. Now, what Nick didn't realize, or I didn't realize, I talked about how there would be a big, economic crash this year. I talked about it last year, and there's videos and talks of me talking about it. But the reality is that the coronavirus is part of the pitchfork. And not only that, Black Lives Matter movement is directly responsible. People are fed up, and this whole racism that's developed and has been systemically inherent in our whole political system for the last 400 years is in a way is a sickness. And what's really profound in regards to Nick's talk that he did in 2017 is the relevance of it, and how the things that he said would be unfolding are unfolding. Our entire economic system is entering into a dark ages. I would call it the modern dark ages. And the third prong, which is the most fearful prong, which is going to set things alight, is in many respects what's being anticipated by Barr and Trump and the administration, because they realize that they've lost. The GOP have backed a sick horse, and they're going to ultimately, they see the writing on the wall, so to speak. So what they're going to end up doing is try to keep Trump in power and also use this whole coronavirus as an excuse for that. And there was an article about this recently, and by some leading thought leaders in the DOJ or former DOJ seeing this happening. So from the appointments to the Supreme Court and everything else, it's kind of like, was Kavanaugh paid off? Was his club paid off? His house was paid off? Is there, something in place? And I hate to be a conspiracy theorist in this, but it seems like, people are bought and paid for. Now, what's really scary is, I believe if Trump does ultimately try to stay into the White House, that's going to be the straw that breaks the camel back, and that's when the pitchforks would come out. So you should listen to Nick Hanaur talk from 2017. It's very good, talking about the minimum wage and everything else. And check that out, because it's very pertinent. And this kind of leads me to the second part, and I'm going to make another talk on it, and that is, someone I know, Brock Pierce, is running for president, and that is kind of like a summer wind unto itself, because Brock ultimately understands the pitchfork better than anyone else, in the sense that he understands kind of the solutions that need to happen. He understands the technology that needs to be developed and introduced. And the simple fact is, we're going too slow and things are speeding up. It's the whole doubling of the penny, right? For the first, I can't remember how many doubles it is, for the first 20 doubles or whatever, you really don't notice it. And then you're at 99% full. The pennies are starting to double to that effect that we're starting to see it. And unless we change things significantly, and the reality is that someone like Biden is putting someone, like Bush back in the power, or someone who really doesn't understand what needs to happen. And the the argument is we have to get Trump out, is because we need to vote for Biden just for Trump. Ultimately, in a way, is a conflict of one's inner value. And a friend of mine told me about this, and I was actually upset with him. It's funny that now that Brock's run, and I feel a kind of a weight lifted off my back, because I really didn't like the idea of voting for for Biden, other than I'm voting for the people that he's bringing in. But ultimately, we need someone in office that really understands where we're headed and the real problems. We need a Nick Hauser in power, right? As part of the economic team. We need Brock with technology. We need to pull together kind of a super group. And the reality is, it won't be enough this year, but maybe it could be the start of something with Andrew Yang for 2024. And then that's only 6 years to 2030, and that's right when things really come to an end. I don't know why I get caught up in all this, because it's just a story. And but as a player in the story, you and me and anyone listening, we have to make, or try to make, a difference, I guess.